you should definitely not buy a console right now. And I don't even think they're gonna make these consoles last a decade. Since they were underpowered from the get-go, and if people start to get 4K monitors or 4K TVs, which a bunch of people will do in 2 years, since they will be affordable, they will be rather expensive. You would probably get a decent one for around $4,000, but we've seen with 1080p panels. Like, for example, when they first come out, everybody had a 1080p monitor, and they would cost... maybe not. Maybe you would get one for $500. A little small one. Yeah, you could probably get one, a 4K monitor for $500 in 2 years. Still a lot of money, but compared to now, it's nothing. But anyway, that's besides the point. 1080p is gonna go away rather soon. That's what I wanted to make clear with that. And 1080p, the console's not even reaching 1080p yet. Just makes me think that they are, as everybody says, really underpowered. They've hit a quite good sweet spot with that. I totally can see the reason why. You obviously can put hardware in there that you have to sell for like $600. We've seen that with the PlayStation 3. Nobody really wants to pay $600 for their console. But what I don't understand is why release these consoles now and not earlier? Think about it. The hardware was rather cheap 2 years ago too. I mean, the chip exists for... chip that's powering these consoles exists for... I don't know, I think I heard the first rumors and specs about it. It's well, the chip in the PlayStation 4 and Xbox 360 and Xbox One is an improvement over my CPU, and I think they got the first kind of prototypes or first like real chips that would operate at the stage, or that could be operated. I think they were releasing these in 2012. So if you could make, and they had a deal with AMD. Both of them had a deal, so they would get them fairly cheap. And since that's the CPU and this GPU, you should have been able to release them at around the same price, maybe $100 more, in 2012. That would make much more sense, and then upgrade in another 2 years, where 4K is mainstream. Upgrade then again. That's what I would do. But then again, I'm not Microsoft or Sony. And I'm a PC gamer, so that's actually not my concern. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is these consoles are underpowered now, and they were underpowered when they were released, and they are hardware. In terms of hardware, they are they are. How do I say that? They're on a state of 2012. Sorry, but that's like the technological thing. Everybody was playing 1080p. They should have come out 2012. What the hell is that? Longbow. Fortunately, nothing for my class. Yeah, so they are on the state of 2012, and I should have released that, not now. That would also make them get them more room for upgrading in the future, because now they're just ridiculously underpowered for a system that's around, or for systems that's like, a console generation is something completely different from a PC generation. You can, if you have a PC, and you upgrade, you usually upgrade every 2 years, but they want to make these consoles last for 5, 7 years. It's just not going to happen with this hardware. They're underpowered now, 1 year after they were released, which hasn't happened in previous gens. Ah, shit. And people are just starting to get another resolution is on top, and these guys cannot is on the horizon, and these guys cannot even handle the current resolution. That's kind of ridiculous in and of itself for a next-gen system. Oh god, I almost died. Really need a gem. Yeah, so I don't know. I would advise every one of you, if you want to start gaming, buy a PC. You can buy a PC that's on par with the Xbox One, maybe even better, for $500, and the games are cheaper, and you have the option to upgrade. In 2 years, you can add a graphics card to that system. You can buy a Kaveri APU, which I think is on chip has a better GPU than the Xbox One and PlayStation 4. What are you doing here? I think the GPU on that chip should be more powerful than the console chips. But you're also gonna get a quad core that's, again, better for PC users. Is higher clock speed though. So in the end, you ultimately end up with fewer cores. I think they are clocked around 4 gigahertz and can turbo up to a little bit more. They're newer type of architecture, so they probably get more done within 1 clock. So I think in the end you basically end up with a chip that's more powerful. And I think that chip, top of the line chip of that line, costs around 120, something like that. It's not that expensive. And again, you get a good ass motherboard. If you get a decent motherboard, you're always gonna have some PCIe lanes. And if you wanna get, like, say 10 years ago, or no. If you find like, oh, my hardware is not powerful enough to run the latest and greatest games, which if you look at the system requirements for freaking Assassin's Creed Unity, that's just a joke, by the way. I've looked at them, and 680 is minimum. Are you freaking kidding me? My PC doesn't even support it. With the chip being 1 year older than they tell you it should be. And they get it to work on these consoles? And my PC is maybe 4 times as powerful as PS4? Guys, there is something wrong with that. They have not done any optimization towards the PC whatsoever. Sorry. But that's another point. But let's not talk about that. It's probably going to run on lower systems than system specs that they require. So let's go back to our example with the little PC that we theoretically built. So you buy a decent motherboard. For these FM2 motherboards are actually kind of cheap. You can get a really good one for 80. I would advise you to go maybe a little bit lower, 50 or 60. So let's just go. You go with top of the line 80. You go with $80 motherboard, MSI, Asus, something like that. You're at $200. You have to get some decent memory on these, since in a typical CPU GPU configuration, what ends up happening is that the GPU has their own memory, which is usually stupid fast. We are talking about DDR5 is usually around a clock speed of, I think in the newer cards they are at 7,000 megahertz, so 7 gigahertz clock speeds, where my RAM only clocks at around 1,866 megahertz, so it's basically 3 times faster, even more than that. So you have to get decent memory. So I would advise you to go buy like 1866 or even higher than that, maybe 2133, something like that, in clock speed, and you would get some decent size of it. I would advise 16 gigs, but if you are into video production, But if you're not, if you're really just gaming and browsing and all that shit, 8 gigs should be fine. I would search for, well, kind of depends. If you want to upgrade memory in the future, and actually it doesn't really make sense anymore since DDR4 is around the corner too. So I would advise you just go with two 4 sticks of decent memory, Corsair, higher clock speed, low cache latency. That make sure that's a low cache latency too, because people usually overlook that. Low cache latency is really important too. Try to aim for around 9. Usually they are at 11 or so. I don't like that. I would go for low cache latency 9 or 10. Yeah, so get 8 gigs of it. It should set you back around 80 bucks again. So you have spent already 280 bucks. Which leaves you need a chassis. You can cheap out on that. You can just buy like one for 40 bucks. And they usually are pretty decent. Crackle core, whatever, is a really good option. They have these core series which are really cheap. But decent build quality and enough space for you to fit everything in. I'm not quite sure what I need to do here. I think I have to get into this cave and... Oh, probably get that. Okay. So you can get one of these for 40 bucks. So you are at 340 bucks right now, and then you need a power supply. A power supply will set you back a really decent one, which allows you to add more. You can spend the 60 bucks on a power supply, or I would probably advise you to go even higher than that. Make sure you buy something that's 80 plus, least bronze. I think that's actually the lowest one. So bronze, or if you can get one, get a silver or gold one. It's actually gonna be better, and get around 600 watts. I would go for 600 watts. If you want to upgrade in the future, that is. If you don't want to upgrade, you can just stick with 500 or 400 watts. But I would probably get 600, so you just have a little bit more space to work with. Oh, and you need a hard drive. I totally forgot that. So get a decent power supply at a good old hard drive. If you can get one and you have an older one lying around, go for an SSD. I just cannot stress enough how important an SSD these days is. I think for a desktop, for everything that's non-gaming, the SSD is the biggest component you can get in a system. Or it's the biggest improvement you can get in a system. You can get one 250 bucks, I think, or around 100 bucks now. 50 gigs for around 100 bucks. Which is kind of good, actually. It's a really good deal compared to what I used to sell for mine, which is also 250 gigs. But I paid 200 for that, but well, that's just how it goes, I guess. Yeah, you can get one pretty decent from Samsung. HyperX, Kingston makes some good ones. You can get one that's pretty decent, but if you don't have because 250 bucks these days aren't really that much. You can basically store up to 5 or 6 games at the same time on them, together with all your Office stuff and all your browser and shit. And Windows also takes a bunch of stuff. Don't get one. Don't get one. You're better off spending that money on a 2 terabyte drive, which should set you back around the same, maybe even a little bit less. So let's say you get a 2 terabyte drive, which is still 4 times the capacity of the new systems at around the same speed. It should set you back around 500 bucks. And
what do you want?
500 bucks.
Honor our clan. Stay safe.
Is around the same as the X+1 would set you back at launch. And also... Wait, do we have another quest?